The dream of going 82-0 is still alive in the Steel City. The Pittsburgh Penguins get a massive victory over the New York Islanders in the home opener and debut some pretty slick new alternate jerseys. We're going to talk about all that on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at synonym for wet. Joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. And you can follow our show's Twitter account at LO_Penguins. You can also find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, as always, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget, we are free and available wherever you find your podcasts, as well as YouTube. Plus, if you follow us on YouTube, be sure to hit the notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Before we dive into it today, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you could win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. More on them later. Happy Friday, everybody. Did the sun feel just a little bit brighter today? Did the world just seem a little bit happier today? Because it kind of did. The Penguins are 2-0. They get a 4-3 win in a really exciting game against the New York Islanders in the home opener. And Hunter, let's just start with that. You said this to me before we started recording, and I could not agree more. That might have been the most entertaining Penguins-Islanders game in like 15 years. That was a up and down, back and forth, sneakily physical, except for the end, which we will get into, game that I was entertained all night. And if you have watched the Penguins for the better part of the last 10 years, when you see the Islanders on the calendar, you can maybe go to bed early because it's not going to be a very entertaining game, regardless of who comes out the winner.
Pat, that might be the most fun I've had watching a game involving the Islanders since before Barry Trotz was their head coach. They were playing super fast. That's the fastest I've seen them play in years. It was a lot of fun to watch. I know this week on the pod, we were talking about, it's like watching paint dry. It's like watching my water boil for pasta or any other boring thing that you have going on in your life. No, this was a back and forth, up and down game, a whole ton of speed. And I was like, am I in the Twilight Zone watching the Islanders actually play a speed and skill game, just because that has not been their MO for the last several years? But those first two periods, a ton of fun. And I would give the Penguins a slight edge after 40 minutes, but the Islanders were still playing, I thought, fairly well. They came out the first 3 minutes of the third. They were getting some chances. After that, I thought the Penguins absolutely blitzed them for the rest of that third period. You look at some of the underlyings. They held the Islanders to 0.37 expected goals in that third period, only allowed one high danger chance compared to 7 high danger chances for the Penguins. They blitzed them for basically that entire period. And, Justin Brazeau gets the game winner. 3 goals in 2 games. Raise your hand if you had that one to start the 2025-2026 season. So many people were overreacting about him being in the top 6. And I said, guys, it's going to be totally fine for a couple of games. I didn't think it would be elite for a couple of games, by the way. Awesome feed there from Evgeni Malkin, and he has 5 points in 2 games. He's been the Penguins' best player. He's never had 5 points in 2 games to start a season with the Penguins. This is vintage stuff we're seeing from Evgeni Malkin right now, but this was a really fun win, and I'm probably going to make this point a lot on the show today, but I feel so refreshed and rejuvenated watching this Penguins team to start the year. I have no idea if this is going to continue. It's only been 2 games. We don't need to start buying playoff tickets or anything like that. But I am just so rejuvenated watching them. There's a different energy compared to what I saw last year. There's a different compete level different kind of effort compared to what I saw last year. These players are playing their absolute asses off shift after shift. And it's only 2 games, but they're 2 of the most fun games I've watched, Pat, in at least a couple of years.
Without a doubt. And we all know that's no shot at the former head coach,
No.
which, speaking of, later on in the show, we're going to welcome in SI's Jenny Streeter. She covers the New York Rangers. We'll get you set for that game this weekend. But back to what we saw on Thursday night, I'm curious to see how long this lasts, because we're going to find out how sustainable this is, or if it's a new coach bump. Because let's be honest here. They had a very fun, very competitive, very productive training camp and preseason, and now they're off to a 2-0 start. So right now, everything is sunshine and rainbows. And let's also keep it 100 here. They haven't played the best teams in the league yet, and they still got about a week and a half until they match up with some of the better teams in the league, and we'll see how they do against them. No disrespect to the Islanders. They're kind of in the same spot as the Penguins. The Rangers, I'll keep saying it, they think they're better than they actually are. So we will see what happens when they go up against some of the league's better talent. But right now, this was once again a full 60-minute effort. They played every second of those 60 minutes. And like you alluded to, they locked it down in the third period, but it wasn't a traditional let's lock it down, go into a shell, play defensive. They kept their foot on the gas, and they kept taking it to the Islanders, and it paid off thanks to that incredible feed from Evgeni Malkin on the bank pass to Brazeau. Brazeau makes no mistake. The Penguins go home with 2 points. But we have gone nearly 7 minutes, Hunter, without mentioning the highlight of the night. Rookie defenseman Harrison Brunick with an absolute snipe job for his first NHL goal, and you don't draw it up much better than that.
The goal was great, and congratulations to Harrison Brunick. I will also say this. I thought he played leaps and bounds better in this one compared to what I saw against the Rangers. Really rough first period. He settled in a bit in the second and thirds to kind of a fine performance. I thought he was legitimately really good in this game, and the numbers also back that up. He played in this one 10 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time, had a 56% shot attempts for rate, had a 65% expected goals for rate, and also a 57% scoring chances for rate. He was driving offense every time he was on the ice, and that goal that he scored, Sorokin, he had no chance on that. What a snipe. Celebration was awesome. You saw his parents in the crowd going crazy, and he keeps this up. I think it'll be down the road, potentially almost a lock that he stays past the 9 games and he plays, potentially 50 plus games this year. He was tremendous. Loved the effort. But again, Pat, I know that shot was great. Don't discount that little feed at first from Tommy Novak. He was the one that really got that going. Bumped the puck forward. Hollander gets it, delivers a beautiful pass right on a silver platter to Harrison Brunick, who makes no mistake. Again, both those feeds there from Novak and Hollander were also so great. And one more thing before we close out this segment, because we're going to discuss Erik Karlsson in the second segment and how great he's playing right now. I will give some flowers to the goaltender, Tristan Jarry. I was really hard on him at the start of this game because the 3 goals that he gave up, Pat, and I was texting you, I felt all of those were savable. I thought he could have made saves there. I even tweeted, you got to be able to make a save, man. The third one, I didn't like his positioning. I didn't like his movement. It felt like he was way too slow getting across the crease for the tying goal at the end of the second period. But he stood tall at the end of the third period. After Brazeau gave the Penguins the lead with less than 6 minutes left, the Islanders threw a lot at him, even though I thought the Penguins were still in control of the game. And he made save after save, and a couple of them were really difficult because they involved some deflections. He stood tall. I will give him credit for that.
He deserves it. It was a really good way to settle in after a shaky start. I will say this. I'm not going to totally disagree, because I agree on the point that all 3 were savable. There's a world where a goaltender stops those. We say it. Our good pal Josh Yohe says it all the time. You are allowed to make a save. But on the first and third, I can give him the slightest of passes. A knuckle puck, we have seen knuckle pucks beat the best of goalies. Was it great? No, like I'm not sitting here saying, don't blame him for that. It's just, it happens. But I can give you a pass a little bit on a knuckle puck because the way it comes off the blade is weird. The way it moves is weird. It happens. The third goal, it was a turnover that led to an odd man rush. Was his side to side movement great? Absolutely not. But he shouldn't have been put in that spot in the first place. The Penguins should have either iced the puck, got it deep, or just made a simple play, which was one of their rare warts of the night. But then the second one, unscreened, doesn't cut down the angle very well. Gotta have that one. But all of that is forgiven because he was really good the last 4-ish minutes of the game when they needed him to be. So really good bounce back for him, really solid 60-minute effort. And we got some more to talk about. Erik Karlsson looks fantastic, and so does number 71, Evgeni Malkin. We will talk about both of those players when we get back, so stick with us. We're going to hop into that right after this. Before we do that, though, we've got to tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is FanDuel. The NFL season is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football so much more exciting, especially when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes game day so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Back here on the Friday edition of Victory Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And let's real quickly, before we get into Erik Karlsson, touch on number 71. 5 points to start the year, 5 assists. Originally looked like he had a goal initially, then it gets credited to Rickard Rakell. But these first 2 games, excuse me if I think that's 29-year-old Evgeni Malkin on the ice and not 39-year-old Evgeni Malkin, because the hop is there, the tenacity is there. This is vintage Evgeni Malkin.
He's been a bully these first 2 games, and when he's a bully, good luck stopping him. It doesn't matter how old he is. He's been a puck hound every time he's out there. He's making plays. That feed to Sid, and by the way, Pat, what do we call that for the Sidney Crosby goal? What type of goal was that?
Vintage
Ryan Pulock. Poor Ryan Pulock. He's trying everything in his power to defend against that, and Sid is like, you're not moving me. I'm down on one knee. There is just no way you're moving me here.
It's like trying to move a centuries-old oak tree. It was just impossible. He had no chance on that.
There was just no way he was moving him. But that feed from Malkin was also great. He gets the primary assist on the Rickard Rakell goal. That feed to Justin Brazeau was also chef's kiss. I know some people will be like, well, he starts fast every season. Not like this. 5 points in 2 games. It looks like he has found the fountain of youth to start this year. And hey, if Justin Brazeau wants to keep playing like this on the second line, even when Brian Rust returns, they might keep him up there for a few more games and then probably reunite Rust with Crosby and Rakell. That reminds me, by the way, I think Ville Koivunen had a lot of chemistry once Dan Hughes switched up the lines last night and put him down there with Ben Kindle. I want to see more of that because they had some chemistry during training camp, but more on that a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, man, this has been unbelievable from Evgeni Malkin. Power play, he's been great. 5-on-5, he's been great. Hell, he was out there in a 6-on-5 situation last night. You hardly see that, especially with where Malkin is age-wise. But I love that Dan Hughes was trusting him in that situation. Just his all-around game right now is superb, and I can't get enough of it.
It doesn't matter who the coach is. When Evgeni Malkin is at this level, you can trust him to play in all situations.
Oh, yeah.
Like so many other things, though, it's early. We got to see how long it lasts, but we can't go without mentioning it. And that also applies to Erik Karlsson. And I'm just going to ask this question straight up, Hunter, and I want to get your thought on it. Did Mike Sullivan hate Erik Karlsson, or did Erik Karlsson hate Mike Sullivan? Because we have been pretty strident defenders of Erik Karlsson on this show. He has not been as bad as some people have made him out to be, nor has he been as good as some people think. But these first two games, this is an Erik Karlsson we have never seen in Pittsburgh.
It's funny, all the things he's doing offensively, I feel like I saw for the most part last year. It was just every other aspect of his game last year, Pat, which wasn't as good. His play in his own zone, too many turnovers, the bad pinches. And, he was doing all the heavy lifting from the blue line just because he was the only player that was able to drive offense from the blue line. But this year, you have his offensive ability, but he's also been great in transition. He's been great in his own zone. His decision-making is great. He's not being as aggressive with his pinches. Look at the way he's going around the world in the offensive zone. He's making all the right reads. And when you combine all of that with the offense that he can drive from the blue line, this is what you get. And I know the points haven't come yet, but they are going to come in waves if he continues to play like this. He has been absolutely sensational to start.
The dam is going.
It also helps, Pat, that Parker Weatherspoon has been a reliable presence next to him in these two games. It's early, but I really like that pairing so far, and it's allowing Karlsson to do the things that he's able to do at the blue line. And Weatherspoon has been, if there's a mistake, for example, that Karlsson makes, Weatherspoon will be there to help him out. So I just really like that pairing as a whole too. But again, everything that Karlsson, struggled with last year, it hasn't been that way this year yet. And when you combine that with the offense that he can create and the skating ability, this is what you get.
I will also say this, and you're right about Witherspoon. He is a pretty good stabilizing presence. And for two games, toss some egg on our faces for that, because we were pretty skeptical about that going into the year. And through two games, they're really telling us to shut the hell up. But I digress. I also have to give credit to Dan Muse, because I have been saying this for the last week. It's something, again, I noticed in preseason in the training camp, but again, I try not to read too much into the way X's and O's go in the preseason. But the way that they are working in the offensive zone, and really just working across all three zones, is there is such an emphasis on puck support. There are always two, if not three, Penguins around the puck. They are outnumbering the opposition at the point of attack. And when you have a dynamic player like Erik Karlsson, and this also applies to Sidney Crosby, Evgeni Malkin, Chris Letang, when you have those players and you're running a puck support system, it gives them more room to operate, because if they make a mistake, there's probably someone there to cover it. But it also opens up more room, because the opposing team not only has to respect the puck carrier in the defensive zone, but they got to respect the other players. So it's opening up lanes. It's opening up areas for Karlsson to go. And that all leads back to something you said, Hunter. The reads he is making, the way he is commanding the play, it is night and day from what we saw the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah, and he's going to be a lock on Team Sweden if he keeps this up. He should already be there no matter what, in my opinion, especially because he was there for the Four Nations. But he keeps this up. They'll potentially name him on the roster next week or something like that. A couple more things, Pat, before we get to our final segment and have Jenny Streeter join the show to help preview this third game against the New York Rangers. I thought Ville Koivunen struggled a little bit once again. I think having him on the third line was really good. I loved that adjustment that Dan Muse made, putting him with Ben Kindle. And they had some good chemistry at camp in preseason, as I said earlier in the show, where they were, feeding off each other. They were making the right reads. And you saw that on display once Muse reunited them. I want to see if that sticks, because there's a chance that Brian Russ could return for this game against the Rangers. It looks like he's very close to returning. If he doesn't return then definitely on the California trip. If Russ returns, I think he's going to play on the top line with Crosby and Raquel. Someone else is going to have to come out. But I would keep Kindle with Koivunen on the third line. If you want to have Tommy Novak there, that's totally good as well. They could also have Philip Hollander there too, because they were having Philip Hollander come up to the top six at times yesterday too. And by the way, I thought he was tremendous too yesterday. So those were a couple of things that I wanted to add. And then, one more, the power play. I thought it was moving a lot better last year. It's on steroids right now compared to that, movement-wise. Everyone is moving around. There's no stagnance when it comes to this power play. You have Malkin around the goal line sometimes. You have Crosby up by the point. You have Karlsson sometimes by the half wall. You have Letang sometimes by the point. Everyone is moving around, and it really just messes with the penalty killers. And that was one of the keys that I said going into this game. The Islanders had the second worst penalty kill in the league last year. And what do you know? It's still not good to start this year, and the Penguins took advantage of it multiple times last night.
It was a really good effort, all things considered. And I will add this before we head to break and welcome Jenny Streeter to the show. You're right about the Koivunen and Kindle thing. And that feels like it could be a mutually beneficial agreement where the Koivunen has struggled the first two games ever so slightly. I thought he was not very good to start the game against the Islanders. But then once that move was made, it really benefited him. And I think those two, like you said, had good chemistry in the preseason. Now let's see how it works in the regular season. As for the power play, Dan Muse appears to be a graduate of Kiss U. Keep it simple, stupid, university. Just letting the big guys go out, do their thing. You know your role. And what do you know? It works. But
that's Todd Nelson too, by the way.
Todd Nelson as well. But early returns, pretty good. Penguins are 2-0. Big win, but massive night, Saturday night at PPG Paints Arena. A rematch with the Rangers and Mike Sullivan's return to PPG Paints Arena. We will preview that game for Saturday night with our friend Jenny Streeter, who joins us on the Locked On Penguins podcast right after this. We're back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp, right alongside the one and only Hunter Hodes. And joining us for the first time on the Locked On Penguins podcast is Jenny Streeter from Breakaway at SI. She's got a special emphasis on the New York Rangers, and she is going to help us get ready for tomorrow night's game, the return of former head coach Mike Sullivan and the New York Rangers. Jenny, welcome to the show. And for our listeners who may not know you, let them know what it is you do.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. I got hired 2 months ago. I'm an NHL reporter for Honest Eye at Sports Illustrated with a special emphasis on the Rangers. Have really been enjoying my time there covering all 32 teams. I'm actually currently in Pittsburgh right now, excited to be kind of on site for the game and see what all of the fans have to say, because what I'm personally excited about this game is it's so cool that we're seeing such a big game like this with so many storylines so early on in the season. I really feel that it's making people get excited for the year to come, and I'm just super excited to get into it with you guys. But Hunter, I do want to give you a shout out before we start. I did see that you did just hit 6 years with Locked On. So hey, congratulations to you before we get started on that.
Hey, I appreciate it. It was nice building the show from the ground up, but I had to get some help at some point in getting my good friend and co-host Patrick Damp in here. It's been great. We have a lot of momentum right now. Thank you to all the new subs out there that's been subbing to our YouTube channel and following on audio. But, you know, Jenny, this is such a big game for a lot of reasons. The Penguins are off to a 2-0 start. They beat the Rangers on opening night. They beat the Islanders on Thursday, something that has really happened over the last couple of years. The Penguins have just really struggled against the Islanders. And honestly, I shouldn't even say, Pat, for the last couple of years. It feels like it's been throughout their entire history.
The history of the franchise,
the Islanders,
yes.
Yeah, they've been the Penguins' boogeyman forever at this rate. But the Rangers that come in off a win against the Buffalo Sabres 4-0. Jenny, what did you see in that game compared to Tuesday night's one against the Penguins?
Yeah, so obviously Tuesday was a slow start for the New York Rangers, just with the 3-0 loss. Not exactly the way they wanted to welcome in the Mike Sullivan era. It was nice to see against Buffalo. We kind of got to see JT Miller record his first goal while wearing the C. That was super good to see as well, especially when you consider that he's coming off of an injury from preseason, which it's very obvious when you watch him skate that he's still kind of dealing with some pain and battling some injury. But, you know, obviously he's the captain and he has a responsibility. So really good to just see him get his first goal wearing the C. We also have had Vincent Trocheck exit the game early with an upper body injury. So he didn't return. He's considered day-to-day. What I feel like a lot of fans don't know about that specifically is that Trocheck actually was wearing a full face shield for the majority of preseason play after taking a puck to the face in preseason practices. So we don't know if the injuries are related, but that's just a kind of good tidbit. But obviously the main storyline now is Sullivan's return, and not just Sullivan's return, but we have David Quinn and Ty Hennis coming back as well. So it's just going to be a super big night, I feel, at PPG.
So obviously Hunter and I have talked about this at pretty great length because the Sullivan stuff was a season and a half long narrative. Hunter and I basically did presidential level debates on whether or not Mike Sullivan should have remained the Penguins head coach or been let go. Obviously, we all know now that happens. Sullivan and the Penguins, quote unquote, part ways. Dan Muse comes in as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sullivan returns to the Rangers, where he spent a few years under John Tortorella as an assistant coach. But Pittsburgh fans obviously have their knowledge, their experience, and their opinions of Mike Sullivan. For the Rangers, however, what exactly have you seen? What has the team said? Because we know from our experience when Sullivan came in a decade ago, it was a fresh breeze on a beautiful spring day for a franchise that so sorely needed it. So for the Rangers, how has the Sullivan experience been thus far, even though it is still pretty early?
Yeah, Pat, that's a really good question. From all of the reporting I've done and from everything I've seen, we've seen Sully really just come in and hit the ground running with the Rangers, which is what everyone pretty much expected. He's a very hands-on coach, but he's also a very tough coach. You know, you're seeing him in practices being really involved, but not only being really involved, being really vocal and being really tough on the guys, which, to be honest, you know, after they missed the postseason the very year after winning the President's Trophy, that's exactly the kind of coach that they needed to come in and do. We saw that their latest practice shirts say no BS, so no bullshit on them, which both Sullivan and JT Miller have gotten a kick out of. So I think it's really just showing that they're looking to erase mistakes and they're really just looking to start fresh, kind of just exactly like you guys said. But yeah, definitely been very tough on the guys and kicking their asses in gear, which I feel is what they needed.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing that we obviously got to get into really quick, because we love our listeners, but we don't want to take up their entire Friday evening. They hopefully have things better to do than listen to the two of us and you, which we're very happy you're here. No offense to you, yammer on for maybe way too long, but we know how the season opener went. It seemed like the Penguins almost kind of surprised the Rangers with the effort. It really felt like that it would have been a big night for Mike Sullivan and the Rangers to start this new era with a big win over their new head coach's former team. But the exact opposite happened. The Penguins came out. They played a really solid 60-minute game. They locked it down defensively, and the Penguins go home with a 3-0 win, and the Rangers are left to wonder what happened. So in your estimation, let's answer that question. What happened?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think just there were a lot of mental errors from the Rangers in that game specifically, but I think you really kind of saw the collapse when Igor Shesterkin was pulled for the empty net. And I think we've just straight up seen how vital he is for the team. We've seen Sullivan say in press conferences that he's glad that he's now a coach who has Shesterkin instead of facing off against Shesterkin. So I think it really just goes to show how vital that particular goaltender is, not only to the New York Rangers, but to the league as a whole.
Right. I mean, I think he's the best goaltender on the planet. I have no problem saying that. Pat, I think for keys to this game for the Penguins, it's pretty similar to what I said during my solo episode earlier this week when you were on IR. You got to get in Shesterkin's kitchen. He doesn't like it when players get around the net mouth. You've seen it a bunch, especially during some of his battles with Crosby. If you can take advantage of their bottom two lines and their bottom two pairings like the Penguins did, I think they'll have a really good chance of winning this game. And again, the way the Penguins were able to just completely neutralize their breakouts from their own end was just insane. So those are the same keys. I'll just say the same thing right there. But Jenny, I'll flip it to you. What do you think are some good keys for the Rangers here?
I would really like to get an update, first of all, on Vincent Trocheck. I think that's one of the first things on everyone's mind, fans and reporters alike. Would really like to see JT Miller look a little bit more comfortable on the ice, not in the sense of like his comfortability, but more in the sense of like pain and just seeing where he's at injury-wise. And then I guess Noah Leba, he's someone who Sullivan made the choice to keep on the roster, and it's really good to see some youth there. So yeah, just really looking to see kind of how the Rangers continue to adjust in everything that's a new slate for them, honestly.
Well, you said adjustments, and if you ask a lot of our listeners, Mike Sullivan doesn't know how to do that, and I will continue to agree to disagree with them because there's a lot more nuance to it than just rip the system out of the wall and put a new one in, but I digress. It's the Penguins. It's the Rangers. Mike Sullivan returns to PPG Paints Arena for the first time as not the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're sure it's going to be an incredible ovation for the man that guided them to 2 Stanley Cups about a decade ago. You can catch that game on Sportsnet Pittsburgh and the MSG Network if you are someone listening to us from the New York area. But before we close it out here, Jenny, let everybody know where they can find you and where they can find your work.
Yeah, thanks for that. Anybody who's listening in can find my work on Breakaway on SI, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. And I would also love to be back on the pod anytime. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, we know that there's always time to talk Penguins Rangers because it's a historic and fantastic rivalry. So when we need insight to the New York Rangers, Jenny, keep that phone on because we're going to be coming to you. And to everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in to the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Hunter and I will be back on Monday with a fresh episode recapping this game and covering any other news that might happen between now and then. So enjoy your weekend. And for Hunter Hodes and Jenny Streeter, I'm Patrick Damp. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will be back on Monday.